It's been 2 months since my last video, and it's been kind of an epic spring. It's everything from sunny to rainy to snowing, and there's been lots of wild clay processing going on in all of that. Where I left off was I decided to do some amendments to the clay to make it more workable, and this is the intermediate batch. This is where when I'm just getting started with adding my amendments. I've dumped out the clay, the basic clay that had nothing done to it, and now I'm getting ready to add some things. My neighbor had a well dug a couple of months ago, and he had this huge pile of slate dust, and I thought, after doing some reading, that the slate would be interesting to add to the clay to give it a little more iron-rich look, to make the clay body a little darker. So I'm sieving it down a little bit to make it a little bit finer powder. And now I'm going to start adding things to the clay. So I'm going to break all this up into smaller bits and just kind of layer it. I'm going to alternate the clay and water and adding the amendments. So I've got the slate dust, and the other thing I'm going to add is called OM4 ball clay. It's a clay, like a clay chemical or clay that you buy. And so I'm starting off small. I'm just adding a little bit here. So that's probably about a pound of the ball clay that I'm going to add, and I think it was maybe maybe 4 ounces of the slate dust. So I'm alternating water and the clay, and then I'm going to mix it all up. I'm going to mix it by hand first and try to get the big clumps sort of broken down and get it sort of homogenized, and then I get to bring in my nice paddle mixer that I've added, and I figure I better make some notes as to what I've put in there so I don't forget. Although now looking back, I've done this so many times, it's really hard to forget all of the things that I've been doing. But at this stage of the game, it was a good idea to write everything down. The paddle mixer gets it all nice and homogenized, and I'll do this over a couple of days just to make sure it's all really well mixed. But I got to thinking, it's just, I really wasn't sure that was going to be enough. And actually, after a couple of tries, I did those same things with adding the ball clay and some more of the slate dust. And, it just wasn't working. It was just not what I wanted. So after a couple more rounds of the wetting it down and adding amendments, I decided to go back to my resources, and my favorite resource right now is the Daniel Rhodes Stoneware and Porcelain book that really has just tons of information, and it really is my go-to resource. So I've decided on how much ball clay I can add, and I'm just going to go with it and sit here and enjoy the morning and the leaves coming out, because it is a glorious morning. And you know, it's important to just stop along the way and appreciate where I am and these opportunities that have presented themselves. So I think I'm on to my third round here of amendments and adding things, and so the bucket has gotten really heavy. I ended up adding 5 pounds of ball clay to the original mix, which ended up being about 40%. And so now I've got, I think I've got probably 35 pounds of clay, and so this is liquid clay, and I've made, you know, with all of that much, it's, you know, you really can't do the hanging the muslin bags in the tree. So I made this wire mesh drying rack to with the muslin to pour the liquid clay out onto the muslin in the rack to get it to allow it to dry. And you know, it's it's a good way to get my exercise, and the rack works pretty well, and with the muslin, and so that helps absorb the moisture, and then the liquid will work its way through the muslin, and over a few days it will dry out. So it's been a couple of days, and now it's time to try and wrangle all of this clay into something manageable so that I can transport it into the house. And it's not quite dry, and it's still pretty sticky, but it's definitely more clay than it was liquid, and it's very close to being time to work with it. It still needs to dry a bit because it's still not quite firm enough to use, but I'm going to take it inside and let it sit for a bit here on my work table and let the muslin absorb some more of the moisture and see what I've got. So here's my first little pinch pot. It really does feel like it's been kind of an epic 2 months here of trying to figure this all out and get the clay workable, adding amendments. But I've got a wood firing on the horizon, and so it's time to make pots, and I'm really pleased with results so far. So that'll be next, making pots and firing the clay. So stay tuned for that.